cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, that ball is close. He's given him. He's given him. Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday.
Welcome back to the On the Ball podcast. This is episode 50. We've done it, lads. Raise the bat. We have done it. I will be honest, I wasn't backing myself to get past episode 10, but we've got to 50 and we're going strong. We're not showing any signs of slowing up. We are today joined by who else? It would only be fitting. I worked it out before. You've been on 21 episodes. Could be wrong. My maths could be wrong. But we are joined by Christian Pilcher. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, mate. Absolute pleasure as always.
How are you?
Keen to raise the bat with you. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Very excited for this, to be honest. It's been a good week. We've recorded a few other potties as well, but in the background, I've been herding together all these videos to make today's special episode for everyone. So I hope you enjoy it. First of all, though, before we get into it, I would just like to say a quick thank you to absolutely everyone who's had anything to do with this. The guests, everyone. I don't think many people have said no or said, like, I can't do that time or whatever. Everyone has been, I guess lockdown does help, but everyone has been so willing to help out. Everyone's been so excited to get on, which only makes my life easier because, it'd be a bit dull if it was just me talking to myself for 50 episodes straight. Anyone who's listened to any of the podcasts, anyone who's followed us on Instagram, liked an Instagram post, liked a tweet, subscribed to the YouTube, anything, I appreciate any of it. This is basically just a little hobby. Uni's not the most time consuming for me. It only takes a couple, like a day or two out of my week. So I thought I'd fill up my time, especially in lockdown, with something else. And this has been more than enjoyable, to be honest. It's been very rewarding. So yeah, I'm not doing this for fame or anything to get views, but it is kind of nice, when people get around you. So I appreciate anyone who's said anything nice about the show, anyone who's supported it in any way whatsoever. But today's episode, to celebrate the 50th special, I thought it would be quite fitting. To those who are the loyal listeners, those who are new, episode 1, me and our man here, Christian, we sat down and talked about our top 5 favorite live sporting moments of our lives. So it's something that we were actually at in person, and a moment is, something. It's not like, I don't know, the Ryder Cup is not a moment. It's something small, so something like, a couple minutes or something, the end of a game, a certain shot, stuff like that. So today, what I thought would be fitting is if I get every guest who's been on the show so far to send me in their favorite live sporting moment, and I'd make a bit of a montage of every single guest we've had. We're going to be going through them in chronological order. So from who appeared first to who appeared the latest, if you know what I mean. And I might pop in between a few just to introduce a few people if they haven't introduced themselves. But just quickly, because me and you can't be left out of this completely. What did you say to those who didn't listen to episode 1? What was your number 1 moment? We don't need to go into too much depth, but so we're not left out of this chat. What did you have?
Yep. So mine was Stevie Motlop's match-winning goal in the 2018 showdown at the Adelaide Oval, which we both witnessed live.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great moment. Love that. And then mine was a bit of a pod. I think, I can't lie, I don't even know the year off by heart. I think it was the 2012 A-League Grand Final. The Brisbane Roar, famous for soccer fans, A-League fans in particular, but one of the great soccer matches of all time. They, came back from 2-0 down in the last 10 minutes of extra time and then won on penalties. So that was my moment. The Brisbane Roar, the mighty Roar, can't lie, I haven't watched a Roar game in about 7 years, but the mighty Roar got up. But before we quickly get into, first up, we've got Campbell, because he was in episode 3. You were in the first 2 episodes. But before we get into young C-Macker, I just need to thank you, Pilch. Obviously, I thank everyone equally, but I think you deserve a bit of an extra thanks. The amount of times I've sent you a message the night before, or sometimes even on the day that, oh, do you mind recording today? I need to get an episode out, or just anything. You've helped me, like, pick titles, pick thumbnails for the YouTube. You've made me like think of ideas, and you've always been there the whole way supporting it. And as I said before, 21 episodes, you've almost been in half of them. So at this point, you're basically co-host. But yeah, I really appreciate that, mate. So thanks, Pilch.
No worries, mate. It's always a pleasure to get on the show, and I'm honoured to have that many appearances. And Toey for the next 50 episodes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I was thinking that before in the shower, like episode 100, like 50 has been a long time. Episode 100, we might be like out of lockdown, or we might be, who knows? The whole world might change. That's like 16 weeks away. I think I worked it out the other month. Definitely not weird of me to do. I think it's like December the 14th or something. So episode 100. So look out for that one.
Got it.
Put it in your calendars. But yeah. So thanks a lot, Pilch. Once again, thanks to everyone who's been involved in any way. Thanks to the listeners who are listening now, even though they're not listening. So I can't really thank them, but thanks to anyone who's listened to any of them. And yeah, so here is Campbell.
Hi guys, so I'm Campbell. You may know me from Hamish's podcast. I usually talk about movies, Marvel, WWE. That's usually my forte. You've probably heard my voice. Never seen this face. But the question is, what is my favourite live sporting moment of the decade? So I would probably say I have a tie for two. So my first one was, we went to Sydney last year to watch Game 3, State of Origin. So it was already pretty tense because I'm pretty sure this was the tiebreaker round. So my whole family was on edge. I was on edge. It was also a very special moment. We were all dressed up in blue. It was the first time we've been to a State of Origin game in quite a long time. So we were already so pumped. And the game was the most intense NRL game I've ever seen in my life. Blues were smashing it, we were crushing the game, and then Queensland came back and we won the game within the last 20 seconds, which is just unheard of, and it was just the crowd going crazy because we were also near Blues supporters. So it was just, the crowd was just really into the game, and it was just, everyone was screaming. I lost my voice the next day. It was honestly one of the craziest NRL games I've been to. And it was great to see former West Tiger player, well, he was with the West Tigers. Oh no, he was with the Roosters that time. James Tedesco, man of the match. So yeah, that sporting event was pretty crazy. So my second sporting event would have to be when last Christmas we went over to England, lucky enough. And we went to an EPL game, and we went to Liverpool versus Wolves. And the game already started off amazing. The day already started off amazingly because my team, Chelsea, won like 20 minutes prior because there was a game just before Liverpool versus Wolves. So I was already elated. But just being in the stadium, like you always see EPL games, like on the TV, or you watch the match highlights, but you never see it in person, and it's just crazy. Like when the fans sang "Never Walk Alone," the energy in that room, everyone was holding up their red scarves. I was just stunned by the camaraderie in that stadium, and I think that's what really makes these two sporting moments the best of the decade, because of the energy in that stadium. Like the Blues energy and the Liverpool energy was just crazy. So those are my live sporting events.
Congratulations, Hamish, on your 50th podcast. Is it 50th podcast or 50th anniversary? I'm not sure, but well done. It's been some riveting conversations, some good, some bad, some ugly, but at least you're having a crack, and that's a good thing. The question that I've been posed is, what is the best live sporting event that I've seen? And I've been very fortunate in my 50 7 years that I've seen lots of sport and lots of exciting things. And it's one of those things that the more you think about it, the more you remember the good things. And the danger, I suppose, is relativity. By that, I mean you remember more recent things. So if you look at the last 12 months, the two things that stand out is the state of origin, the climactic state of origin, and then, of course, the soccer matches that we saw, football matches we saw in England when we were over there for Christmas. And they really do, they are the stop. But the thing you think to yourself is that because that's more recent. It's interesting that football should be in there because most of the sporting things that I've watched is dominated by cricket and rugby league because that's my two passions as a sporting person. Cricket, cricket I've seen lots of things. I've seen Greg Chappell break records. I've seen Dennis Lilly break records. I saw them play their last test where they all played together. We saw Mitchell Johnson just tear apart England on that last day in the first test in England in the recent Ashes, or not recent, but 2013-14 Ashes, which set up that summer. So there's been some really good cricket events, and I'm sure the more I think about it, more will come back. Probably the highlight for me for cricket is Jeff Thomson versus the West Indies back in 1976 when he absolutely just tore through the West Indies, and I never ever seen anything like that before. So you see lots of individual great things, but I think cricket's also an interesting one because it's more of a gradual build-up. So it's always, is it that event? Whereas with rugby league, a much shorter time frame, and things move at a much faster rate in rugby league, so you remember more. Probably when I now look back, obviously following a team like Balmain and the West Tigers, the good times are few and far between. But when they have good times, it is good times. And probably the game that stands out and the live event that I really treasure the most was the semi-final against St George in the 2005 Premiership reign. I like that game while I was there, whereas the grand final we didn't go. But I always think the grand final is a bit more of an anticlimax compared to the week before. And the thing that I loved about that game was, first of all, we were there. It was a sold-out crowd. It was over 40,000 people. And it was dominantly, it was a pure tribal game, like St George and West Tigers. Half the crowd was in orange and half the crowd was in white. So it really was what everyone talks about when you see that tribalism, and it was just a magical night. And I think, that I had, I was there with Nick, I was there with Tommy, Maureen, Michael. Cameron was there with his girlfriend somewhere else in the crowd. And then, of course, you had Hamish, you were there, and Lachlan was there. And Hamish, you were only, 5 years old, and then Nick was there. So it was, a true family event. And it was one of those magical nights where a huge crowd, huge impact. Then, of course, Benji Marshall scored a try very early in the match where he just ran right around Mark Gasnier. And that just set up the tone for the rest of the night. And then the Tigers just actually dominated. And then there was a period, I remember, in the second half where St George started coming back because you just knew that they would come back. I think Trent Barrett either sent up a try or scored a try, and things were starting to get, this is going to get a bit edgy. And during that period, the scoreboard or the timer on the scoreboard broke, and so you had no idea really how long was left in the game, and you were trying to guess. But then there was a period where the Tigers got a big enough lead, and with 5 minutes to go, you knew they were going to go to the grand final. And I remember the buzz in the crowd as people realised that this team was going to do it. And, when you consider the last time that a lot of the supporters in that crowd had success was in 1989, you could actually feel the enthusiasm and that just huge buzz of excitement as people know that they're going to make it. And I think that's what I really enjoyed, was that last 5 minutes where you just knew that they're going to do this. They couldn't lose. Nothing was going to stop them from doing it. Then you just sat and just absorbed it, and you just sat in your seat and looked around, and it just was an awesome night. Then of course we hung around, and most of the players came out. We got autographs, and it was just a great night. And like I said, I always found the grand final a week later a little bit of an anticlimax. It was great to win, but it was an anticlimax. So that by far and away is my best sporting memory. The one that would come pretty close to it now, and as I said, I do worry that this is more recent, so it's in your head, was the day we saw Liverpool and Wolves at Anfield. And for the theatre of sport, I don't think it could get any better than to sit there. I just thought that was just it was hard to describe. And, Glenn was so lucky to be there and feel it. And you could only imagine what it must be like when there's a big game on. I enjoyed that. And then when we backed up to see Arsenal about a week later, you felt it again. So the Liverpool game would be now my number 2. The State of Origin obviously would be in that top 3. So it's quite interesting that two of my top 3 events is just recent. But by far and away, it's all about the West Tigers for me. 2005 doesn't get any better. Unfortunately, that night you didn't think it would be another at least 15 years before we see it happening again. I look forward to it happening again, and that's what keeps you alive as a supporter, that anticipation that it's going to happen. But it was a great night. I got to share it with 2 of my 3 boys, and got to share it with Nicole, and it was just fantastic. So that's it, Hamish. And as I said at the beginning, well done on all your podcasts. And I look forward to being a more important part of the podcast going forward, because when I'm on it, I think the standard lifts. Okay, see ya.
Hi, I'm Nicole, Hamish's mum. First off, I'd like to congratulate Hamish on reaching his 50th podcast. The dedication that I've seen over this time of him, trying to come up with great ideas that were interesting and that would engage the people that he had on his podcast as well as his audience, and how he included family and friends. It's been a real testament to his dedication and strive to always deliver something that's of a good standard. So congratulations, Hamish. When I was trying to think of my most favourite live sporting event, I did come up with a few things at first, and then I sort of had a light bulb moment one night. I know that doesn't happen very often, but I actually think I'm actually attacking this a different way. I actually think my most favourite live sporting moment is those that leave you with a tear in your eye, that you remember, that feeling that you have at that moment at the live sporting event that you're at, that you remember that feeling the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, the next decade. I think the most favourite sporting live moments are those that bring people together and allow people to share memories together and experiences, and hit you hard when it's maybe not a great outcome, or it fills you with elation when it's a great outcome. So I think that's the true testament of the best live sporting moment is when it leaves you with those feelings. Just leaves you with those feelings and it hits you right there. And I think sport can bring people together. And, so they're my favourite live sporting moments. So a couple of these examples that I'm talking about would be the 2019 State of Origin in Sydney and at ANZ Stadium. It was just so great, the atmosphere, the vibe, and being able to share it with my whole family and my sister-in-law, and watching the look on my boys' faces. That was just amazing. And also the 2000 semi-final Olympics. That was another amazing moment. When Kathy Freeman was racing, there was so many cameras and the stadium was electrifying. So those are the things that I think are the most memorable live sporting moments that stir those amazing feelings inside. Thanks.
So for me, the number one live sporting event that I go to every year is the Australian Open for sure. I go 3 to 5 days ground pass every year, and I always love it. So when I was thinking about my favourite live sporting event that I've been to, I knew that it had to be from the Australian Open. There's nothing else that I've gone to live that really compares, in my opinion, to the Australian Open every year. So when thinking about my favourite specific match that I've been to, even though I've been to semi-finals and I've never been to a final, I've been to a semi-final, it was pretty ordinary. I've been in Rod Laver Arena, but in the first few rounds. So the matches are usually pretty one-sided. When I think about the best live sporting event, the best atmosphere, the match that I think of is a match that I went to in the 2019 Australian Open with Brody on Show Court 3, which is a court where usually the Australians play. And it was Alex Bolt vs Gil Simon. Seems pretty random, but it was last match on in the second round. Show Court 3 is usually a court where the crowds get pretty hyped up, especially at night. And it's often the last court on at night where they still have a match playing. And it was in this case with the Australians playing. We got there early, so we secured our seats. Usually they're pretty hard to come by. And watched him. He was down 2-1. We weren't really expecting too much from him because Gil Simon's a much better player than Alex Bolt, always has been. And then the fourth set tiebreak comes around and Alex Bolt saved a couple of match points and won the fourth set tiebreak 10-8, and then came back, was a break up in the fifth. Gil Simon broke back, it was 4-all, and then Alex Bolt secured the last two games and won the match 6-4 in the fifth. We were there the whole time. It was being played on Channel 7 and whatever before all the night matches started. And it wasn't necessarily a massive spectacle. There wasn't 100,000 people there, but it was just a crazy atmosphere. We were really involved in it the whole time. And it was just a crazy match to see, crazy match to witness. And the fact that it was an Australian playing really amplified the atmosphere in there. And nothing, even though I've been to my footy team winning a couple of finals, and for me, the tennis is definitely number one, the Australian Open, in terms of live sport for me, and that match has to be the best match or the most exciting live match that I've ever been to. Maybe if I was watching it on TV, it wouldn't be up there. I probably would have forgotten about it if I was watching it on TV, but just being there in the moment made it quite special, yeah. So that's my number one live sporting moment that I've been to.
G'day Corker, congrats on 50 eps mate, it's a great achievement. It's been great to be involved in. I'm sure those listening love it as well, and keep pumping them out. And who knows where it'll go. It's just great to be involved in, as I said. So I believe we're doing our most memorable sporting moment. So as a Hawthorn fan, I've been lucky enough to witness 4 premierships 3 of which I've been to, and also one that we lost, unfortunately, in 2012. And despite winning the three-peat in 2015, my most memorable sporting moment certainly has to be the 2008 Grand Final. I was only 8 at the time, so I was pretty young. I remember Geelong being an absolute powerhouse to AFL at the time. They were in the peak of what there was their probably most dominant 3 years, being 2007, 2008 and 2009. And I just remember Hawthorn had a pretty young side as well. Not obviously that I thought they were young, but I obviously thought that they weren't as mature as Geelong. And yeah, I just remember we were seeing the fourth back row of the MCG, the very gods of the MCG, and I just had never witnessed something like it. It was a packed stadium. It was so loud, and I remember the final siren going, and we won. I remember a game where we had rushed behinds throughout, and my dad was pretty on edge the whole game, to be honest, and I just remember that siren going, and I just remember the whole crowd getting up, except obviously the Geelong supporters, but yeah, all the Hawthorn supporters getting up, and I never heard such a loud noise, and then I just remember that confetti coming down, and yeah, it was something I remember forever. It was unbelievable, to be honest. And there's just so many aspects that I remember that compared to the other grand finals, I just don't really remember as much. And I reckon that's just because it was my first grand final I'd ever witnessed, and obviously we got up, which was great. But yeah, just parts like Shane Crawford yelling, "That's what we're talking about," and it was just hearing the song go on repeat. It was just outstanding to witness, and certainly my most memorable moment. It was a tough tough fought game. But the specific moment, if you want, would definitely be when that siren went in the 2008 grand final and Hawthorn got up. It's just something I'd never witnessed before as an 8-year-old, and it's something that will probably live with me for a lifetime, which is pretty awesome. Pretty cliche to say, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. And so that's my most memorable moment that I've witnessed, and keep going with the potties, mate, and maybe I'll be on soon again, eh? Thanks, mate.
Hey, Cork. Thanks for having me on again. Congrats on the fastest 50 of your career. So I think my most treasured sporting moment that I've watched live would have to be the World Cup final in Australia in Melbourne at the MCG. I happened to win some free tickets, so me and my dad had some of the best seats in the house. And then to see Mitchell Starc knock over Brendan McCullum with, what was it, the third ball of the game was just insane. More than that, I think it was just the way that the crowd reacted and went off. It was just an unbelievable moment. And then to cap it all off, to see Clarkey in his final, I think it was his final ODI innings, to smash around the New Zealanders and then to walk off and have everyone standing clapping him off was just unreal, seeing as I was like my favourite cricketer growing up. So that was the one for me. Congrats on the 50, mate. See you soon.
Hey guys, Lachlan MacCorquodale here. I'm the older brother of the host of the podcast, Hamish. He's asked me to give my greatest sporting moment that I've seen live, and there was a few ones that come into it. There was a game, I think 2017, the Tigers knocking off the Storm in the last minute. It was pretty good, and had a few friends there as well, so we went out and enjoyed the night. Getting close to standing 6 feet from Tiger Woods last season, the President's Cup was pretty amazing. But I think the number one for me would be last year's State of Origin in Game 3. We were lucky enough to attend in Sydney. Just the second Origin game I had attended. I think the previous one was at the MCG a couple of years ago. It wasn't a deciding game, so obviously didn't have the importance of the one last year, which I think it was 1-1 heading into the last game, obviously, and it was a pretty tight game. I think Queensland had fought back in the second half and were up by a couple of points. And then it was the last couple of minutes that really made it exciting. And given it was in Sydney, most of the crowd was supporting New South Wales. So, it was coming down to the last couple of minutes, and, it was getting pretty nervy in the crowd, given that the Blues were just a couple of points behind the Maroons. Then it came down to the last play. I think there was like maybe 30 seconds to go in the match, 40 seconds. And I think Mitchell Pearce had shifted the ball right from 30 out of their own line. I think Mbai had come in from Queensland to try and make a tackle on the back row or centre, and the pass has gone straight past him, and it's ended up with Tom Trbojevic, who's drawn in the winger, giving the pass out to the winger, and then Blake Ferguson was sprinting down the sideline. And he nearly went out. He was like tiptoeing down the sideline, nearly falling over. And I don't know how he managed to stay in, but he did. And then I think he drew the fullback Ponga, bang, threw a ball inside to Tedesco, 20 metres, then Tedesco stepped back inside and sprinted the remaining defenders to score in the corner, and like everyone just went nuts. It's incredible. One of the greatest things I've ever seen in person, and to have 80,000 people just going off their brains as the Blues had scored the winning try in the final second of the game. I think there's a Queensland similar moment in the 94 series with Mark Coyne's try, but this was New South Wales' turn, and I couldn't believe it the whole night, just on the train back to Manan's place, and just thinking about it now, I can't believe that happened. It was incredible.
G'day Hammer, g'day boys, how you all doing? So my favourite sporting moment I've been to is actually a two-way tie. I could not split them. First of all, I'm going to name some honourable mentions. So first of all, I went to the 2011 prelim final between Geelong and West Coast, just because it's the best AFL game I've been to. Considering I'm a Saints fan, I didn't get to go to the grand finals in 09 and 10. So that was a good experience. However, it was a pretty comfortable Geelong win. Also went to a semi-final in the Australian Open between Andy Murray and Thomas Birch a few years back. It was a pretty comfortable win to Murray, but I had some very nice courtside seats, so that made it a very good experience as well. Also been to a couple of last ball finishes in cricket and so on. However, my two-way tie, first of all, was in 2018 to 19, the Test series against India. It was the Boxing Day Test, day 2, in the afternoon. So I don't know if any of you will remember, but we got smashed that series. It was when we didn't have Smith or Warner or any of them, so top order consisted of, Marcus Harris, Aaron Finch and all them. However, so day 2, it was the start of the day, started with India finishing their first innings, so Pujara made 100 and they made a pretty good score and declared. They then rolled through us for about, not much, about 200 from memory. And then we came into bowl. It started off looking like another typical Indian dominance until Pat Cummins stood up. Took the first wicket of Vihari for I think it was 15 roughly. And then Pujara, the man who turned up in the first innings, Paddy Cummins got him out, I think, second ball. So it was absolutely unbelievable to see that. We all thought when Pujara was walking out, we thought, oh, here we go, another 300 ball ton. I was about ready to leave with Jack Broadbent, Finn Broadbent, who bailed early. But Jack Grender and I, good mate of mine, stayed there and witnessed one of my favourite ever sporting memories. So he got Pujara out for a 2-ball duck. We thought, well, this is awesome. Because the entire MCG was filled with Australian fans who were just sick and tired of the Indian dominance in the series so far. So we got absolutely around him. It felt like 100,000 crowd. And then, what do you know? Virat Kohli walks out, obviously a bit of an enemy to the Australian side at the time. Got him out very cheaply as well. So he was gone for another duck. And then Rahane, who's obviously very good cricketer, came out, got him out in the space of 2 balls. So we took out 3 or 4 very quality batsmen, Paddy Cummins did, in the space of about half an hour, and just the scenes were incredible. There was a hat-trick ball that was nearly out, actually. But yeah, considering I'm a Saints fan and most of my games were at Etihad Stadium, I haven't really witnessed a massive MCG eruption like I did that day, so that was absolutely awesome to finish the day off. My second favourite sporting memory was in 2013, round 23. Wasn't an MCG final or anything like that. It was simply the last game that St Kilda trio, Jason Blake, Justin Kosicki, and who was the third one? Stephen Milne played for the club. It was against Fremantle. They were making finals, so they arrested their entire squad, and I think we finished near the bottom of the ladder. But we absolutely obliterated them, and it was just awesome. Cozzy was my favourite player as a kid growing up, so it was good seeing him in his final game. He came on as a substitute and he kicked 4 behinds. his last behind, everyone thought was a goal. So he got the massive celebration and everything. All of Etihad just absolutely erupted. The roof was open, which made it better. So that's probably the loudest Etihad has ever been in its history. So Cozzy kicked that goal and then it was reversed, which those boos, I couldn't hear myself think. Jason Blake as well, awesome lockdown, tall defender. He managed to kick a goal. He's famous for only ever having one Brownlow vote, but he was a very solid St Kilda player. So got to see him. And of course, Stephen Milne managed to kick, I think, a couple in that last game. So just to see all those boys off and for all of them to kick a goal, well, except Cozzy, who sort of got to live it, but statistically didn't. That was an absolutely awesome day. Obviously, growing up, seeing them in the grand finals and just growing up absolutely admiring them and meeting them at Auskick and all that, seeing them off like that with the massive crowd, followed by an awesome win by us, was such a good memory. Arguably my favourite St Kilda win ever. So, yeah, hopefully if we do this again next year, hopefully it's celebrating a St Kilda grand final win. Not going to get ahead of myself, but yeah, thanks boys and go Saints.
G'day guys, I'm here for the On The Ball podcast special 50th episode and my favourite live sporting moments that I've been to. So I've narrowed it down to 3. I've been very lucky and gone to a lot of great sporting events around the world and mainly in Melbourne. My first one, being a Carlton supporter and loving my AFL footy, is the 2013 elimination final where Carlton came down from about 5 goals at halftime and beat Richmond. It was a beautiful spring day at the G. There was about 95,000 people, and I just remember that day being unbelievable atmosphere. Carlton played unbelievably well. There was some stars, you know, with the 3 amigos and Judd and Murphy and Gibbs, and Nick Dygan was a hero kicking 4 goals, and it was just an electric day at the MCG. So that was my first favourite sporting moment. My second one would be I was fortunate enough to go to the 2018 Men's Oz Open final between Federer and Cilic. Dad and I went to that match. It wasn't a classic in terms of going in the all-time great matches in tennis history, but it went to 5 sets. Got to see Roger, my favourite player of all time, live for the first time, and he won, which was fantastic. Once again, it was a high quality level of tennis, great atmosphere inside Rod Laver Arena, and it was a great night. And finally, came to last year, you know, I had to split hairs between going to Wimbledon for the first time, which is, of course, the most famous tennis Grand Slam on the calendar. But what just pipped it for me was going to the ICC Cricket World Cup at Lords. It was Australia and New Zealand playing. It was about 30 degrees, a hot London day, and we were fortunate enough to sit in a box with free food and drink. And we also had the pleasure of sitting next to Alan Border all day. So we watched the cricket, drank lots of beer, ate lots of food, and saw the Aussies beat the Kiwis quite comfortably. Trent Bolt took a hat-trick, so that was a real highlight of the day, but Australia cruised to victory. So, yeah, they're my 3 favourite sporting moments. There's plenty of others. The President's Cup last year, lots of times at the tennis, footy, been to the basketball, but those 3 stand above the rest and what will live on in my memory. Enjoy.
My favourite sporting moment would have to probably be the Champions Trophy we won in 2017 Pakistan. Everyone had written us off, but I still had hope that we'd win, and as it happened, we won the Champions Trophy. We had a very good team, I think, and I think it was the biggest highlight for my life is seeing Pakistan win something. So them winning the Champions Trophy was a big deal for me. So yeah, thanks.
My favourite live sporting moment that I've witnessed. As a Geelong fan, this might not surprise you too much, but it's Tom Hawkins after the siren goal against Hawthorn, round 19, 2012, to keep the Kennett curse rolling on. And it was sort of before Tom Hawkins, you know, now is considered like one of the best key forwards in the comp, but this was, you know, a lot of opposition supporters still didn't really rate him, and he got a lot of hate. especially from a few mates of my dad who were Hawthorn supporters. They were always getting stuck into him for being pretty useless. And to have him, of all players, after the siren, 55 out, probably one of the cleanest drop punts ever kicked. Like, that thing went over the top of the goalposts from 60. It's probably like a 70-meter drop punt. And I was at the game. It was pretty remarkable. Pretty special memory, that. Thanks for listening.
Hey, hope everyone's going well during Corona. Part of On the Ball podcast 50th episode, being asked by Hamish to give some of my most memorable live sport moments. So I've chosen two that really stood out to me, although there was a couple. The first one was the 2016 AFL Grand Final. So it was the Bulldogs against the Swans. Although I do support Essendon, so this might be a little bit of a cop-out, but only grand final I've ever been to of probably any sport, so that firstly is a pretty big thing, but just the atmosphere, just the absolute occasion. Most people won't go to a AFL grand final in their whole life, so it was definitely pretty special, and especially got to go with a couple mates, so it was really good. I think the thing that stood out for me as well for that was just the Bulldogs winning. Finished pretty low. I think they came seventh that year, so weren't even expected to be in the grand final, let alone win it. And yeah, just a really good game. It was pretty close up until probably the last 15 minutes. And just after, the Bulldog supporters were going mental, the guys crying and just raw emotion. You couldn't help but get involved with it, and just had massive, just really feel good kind of story. So yeah, that was my first memorable live sport moment, and for my second one was earlier this year going to a Lakers game in LA. So got to see Lakers versus the Knicks at the Staples Center, which was I was pretty excited for that. That was amazing. Got to see LeBron, Anthony Davis, who just to say that I've seen one of the greatest ever basketball players means a lot. Definitely memorable, and they make a good spectacle of the sports over in the US. It's a big show, and it really sort of makes it like a movie kind of atmosphere. The actual game itself, the Lakers won by sort of 15, 20 odd points, so it wasn't like a super memorable game in that way. I think LeBron scored 30 and got a triple-double. But yeah, it's just to say that I've been able to go to an NBA game. Might be the only one I ever see again, who knows. And it was, just really special. Pretty close to the court, had decent seats. So yeah, that'd be my second one.
G'day guys, hope we're all well. Pleasure to be back on the podcast for a big special episode, the big 5-0. Big shout out to Hamish for making it this far. 50 episodes, absolute effort, and shout out to all the listeners who've put in the time to give the podcast a bit of a listen. So big shout out to them, big shout out to Hamish and the potty, done really well. Hopefully get a few more mentions and a few more episodes in the future, but big shout outs. My favourite live sporting moment I've been to, bit of an odd one, but it was the first basketball game I ever went to for the NBA. And it was January 17, 2012. It was the Heat versus the Spurs in Miami. I got quite lucky. Dad provided a little package deal for me and my sister, so we got to kind of meet the team, the Miami boys, before the game, and got to shoot a free throw before the first tip-off. So luckily I clutched up and drained the free throw, so that's something I'll remember forever for sure. But yeah, getting to high-five all the boys as they run out. LeBron and Chris Bosh were huge. It's really cool to see them. Unfortunately, D Wade was out, but he was still at the game, so it was pretty cool to see them all in person. And then the game was very interesting. Heat were down by 14 or so at half time, maybe 15, 16. Danny Green for the Spurs actually hit a half-court shot at the buzzer on halftime, so that was pretty crazy. And then the third quarter, really, the Heat caught fire. LeBron was just splashing them from everywhere. The Heat outscored the Spurs 39-12 in the third quarter. LeBron was just taking over. Big Mikey Miller, big three-point specialist. He went 6 from 6 for the night, so it was pretty something. American Airlines Arena was rocking. LeBron dropped 33 for the night, 10 assists. It was pumped, full stadium. Obviously, pretty prime Miami Heat team back around those days. So it was pretty crazy, and it's pretty cool to get involved on the court and stuff as well, which I think added to it. But yeah, it was pretty elite to see. Probably one of my favourite sportsmen of all time. Definitely my favourite basketball, LeBron, in person, and the way he played too really came out. And he was unreal that night. So can't beat it for me, I don't reckon. Bit of an odd one. Nothing too, crazy. Maybe not finals or anything, just a regular season game. But for me, it was pretty special, and the performance that the boys put on was pretty crazy. Ended up winning by 22 or something after being down at half time. So good game to be to. I've gone to 2 Ripper NBA games, but yeah, the first one takes the cake for me. So congrats on the big 50 episodes, mate. Hope you're doing well, and thanks for listening, everyone. Keep giving your attention to the podcast. He's producing quality content every week. So thanks, Cork, and hopefully I'll see you soon for another episode. But this is Peanut signing out.
Hey, Cork, congrats on the 50th episode, mate, and thanks for having me back on the show. My favourite sporting moment of all time would have to be the 2018 final between Melbourne and Hawthorn. I had the flu the week before, so I couldn't go to the game against Geelong, but luckily they got the win over the Cats, and I was able to watch them live in a final for the first time against Hawks the week later. My favourite individual moment from that game would have to be, it was early in the fourth quarter. The Hawks were kind of mounting a bit of a comeback, but then Jakey Melksham roves one off the pack and kicks it on his left from about 45 metres out to kind of steady the ship a little bit, and the D's are home and hosed after that. Cheers for having me on again, Cork, and keep up the good work, mate.
The event that stood out for me was the 2015 World Cup, where Australia beat New Zealand, and watching Mitch Starc tear through their attack was awesome to see. But that deafening sound around the MCG when Mitch Starc took out McCullum's stump was awesome to watch. And the way that the Aussies, maturely got through the batting innings, not collapsing, as they did a couple times, but got through the World Cup. So it was awesome to see them win, and to be at the G as well was awesome.
Thanks for that one, Finn. It's the boys. We're back here again. We don't have much to say this time. We're just doing a quick little outro. I thought it'd be nice for, the usual 2 suspects to round off this 50th episode special. I won't lie. At this point, we're recording this on the Thursday. I haven't edited this podcast. So this could have been a 20-minute episode. It could have been 2 hours. I actually don't know how long it is once I get all the videos together, but I appreciate every single one of the guests for sending in their videos. Much appreciated. And also thanks for them for appearing on the show. Once again, as I said in the intro, just a huge thanks to everyone who's helped me out with this. I'm really enjoying it. It's one of my favorite projects I've ever done ever. It's so much fun. Love talking about sport. But in saying this, we've made a big hoo-ha about this 50. We'll raise the bat once again. But it doesn't finish here. We've got episodes planned, I don't know, for months on end. So we're going to keep producing content 3 a week for the foreseeable future. Thanks once again, Pilch, for joining me today. I know we only had a bit of a short gig today, didn't we? Not our usual hour of talking rubbish, but I didn't mind it. Just a little quick intro, outro, followed by a fort session. But I appreciate everything you've done for the podcast. I appreciate what everyone's done for the podcast. And if you've got to this point, congratulations. It's very impressive that you've listened this far. And looking forward to the next 50. Hopefully We don't lose concentration. Sometimes when you raise the bat, you get a bit carried away with yourself. You're happy that there's going to be a 50 on my cricket, and then all of a sudden you're out for 54, and you face 200 balls and you've let the team down. But let's try and push on. Let's make this a big one. Let's make it count. We don't want any sprays from Duncan Bawley, as he used to spray Locke for getting out for, between 30 and 60. So let's make this one count. Let's not be English cricketers. And let's ton up, baby. I'm looking forward to this next 50, and I'm looking forward to, filming more podcasts for you guys to listen to and for Pilch to be a part of. But yeah, let's go play some fort. See you guys.
Cheers, mate.